Y'all ready?
We're ready.
All right. When you get Medicare, there are a couple of different options on how you can choose to utilize your Medicare. You have just Medicare, and you have Medicare Advantage. Medicare Advantage is something that's been around actively since about 2006, but it's been rapidly increasing in popularity because the networks are getting better and better with it, and it's becoming more and more available, and there's more and more competition on that. So it's good to understand the difference in these two options. With Medicare, you have your standard red, white, and blue Medicare card, and you can go to any doctor that accepts that. Any doctor that accepts original Medicare, which is about 97%. Sounds like a fake statistic, but that's about where it's at. About 97% of them in the country. In this area where we're at, it's about 99.8% of them. Don't really have an issue with that. Another thing with original Medicare, it works like this. You have 80-20 co-insurance on pretty much all medical procedures, surgeries, things like that. You have a hospital deductible of $1,408 right now. So if you go into the hospital, you have to pay that before it pays anything else. And then there's some other smaller out-of-pockets, but the big portions of this 20% is unlimited, and then you can have this $1,408 deductible ongoing. And if you have an extended hospital stay, you can pick some big daily hospital co-pays up down the road. Well, with this option, you can choose to get a Medigap plan, also referred to as a Medicare supplement, and you can get a plan, you know, like an F, G, or an N. Those are the three most popular. You can't get the F plan if your Medicare eligibility started after January 1st of 2020. So for a lot of people, you know, if you're newer to Medicare, that's not an option. But G is very close, and what it does is it comes in and it pays this 20%. It pays this, pays almost everything except for a one-time $198 calendar year deductible called the Part B deductible. Now that deductible can go up. Last year it was $185. Last year it was $185, went up to $198. So it can go up, doesn't go up very rapidly, but it will go up. It'll probably be $202, $205, something like that next year. Now, the N is a whole nother thing, but you can get your costs down if you take on a little bit more out of pocket, like a copay and some other things with the N. But this plan has a price on it. Typically in this area, you're looking at somewhere around $100 a month, but then that price can go up each year. Now with this option, you also have to get a standalone Part D plan, and they range from $1,320 to about $80, which really the $1,320 to $20 range is where most people fall. So with this option, you're typically looking at about $20 here, $100 here, and then your Part B of Medicare for most people is about another $144.60. So your total all in is the $144.60, the $100, and then the $20, right? So we're looking at you're looking at about $264.60 a month for somebody going on Medicare on this option. Now on the Medicare Advantage option, the reason some people consider it is, we'll talk about the benefit first. There are plans that are $0. Now you still have to pay this Part B premium either way, $144.60, but your all-in price on it, $144.60, right? So you're looking at about $120 a month savings on average for somebody starting out, and more over time, because this supplement premium does go up each year, and we can sometimes shop it and get it down, but sometimes you can't, and you get stuck in that increase, scenario. So sometimes this might get up to, by the time you're in 10, 15 years, you might be paying closer to $200 for that. So then we're talking about a $220 a month savings. So when people consider Medicare Advantage, it's mostly about the premium. Also, there are some additional benefits. Some of these Medicare Advantage plans automatically cover some dental, vision, hearing, maybe some rides to hospitals, over-the-counter benefits, just little things that they add in there to sweeten the pot. Now on the cons to this side, you have co-pays everywhere you go. Typically somewhere between $7 and $25 for a primary care doctor visit, between $15 and $50 on a specialist. But then when you go into the hospital, you could have somewhere between a $200 and a $350 daily copay for between 5 and 7 days. Well, that gets kind of expensive, when you're having to pay that. And then you have some other things that can happen, like you could have to pay 20% of chemotherapy, but it's capped at the maximum out of pocket on the plan. Which, remember, Medicare itself doesn't have the maximum amount of pocket. The Medigap policy is what creates the cap on out of pocket. So you're having to pay these premiums to attain that here. With here, this is built in. Most of them have somewhere around a $6,700 maximum out of pocket. Sometimes it's lower than that. Sometimes it's $7,000. As long as you stay in network, you're at whatever that built-in out of pocket is. If you go out of network, sometimes they increase what the maximum out of pocket potential is. So another con here is you do have to stay in the network. Now, like I said in the beginning, those networks are increasing in adequacy. So, like in our area now, there are plans coming out that both hospitals around here are in network. Even they're talking about the Alcorn Hospital being in network. So it's getting very, very, competitive. But those networks can change too. So you could put a bunch of people on a plan, and technically, if hospital wanted to play Cowboy Hospital, they could pop out of the network, and then those people would be in the same boat. We've seen some of them in the past. So that is a potential. So when we're comparing these two, it really comes down to the value proposition. Can you afford these premiums as they go up over time? If you can, and you can comfortably afford it, and it means more to you to just pay this and know you can go where you want to go and everything's paid for, that's great. If you think you're going to have trouble affording this as the supplements go up over time, or even initially, this might be a better option. Now, there are some plans too called HIPs, hospital indemnity plans, that you can throw on here that would pay for some of this and some of this for you. Pay that out of pocket to help. And those are somewhere between $30 and $60 a month, typically. But then when you add that premium in, remember that reduces the amount of cost difference between this one and this one. Still cheaper, and also the hospital indemnity plan increase history is almost non-existent. So normally those plans don't go up. This cost goes up, but this one's going to be built into either option. So that doesn't really matter. It's going to go up regardless. So that is how I normally would set the tone for Medicare with supplements and drug plans versus Medicare Advantage. And then I just kind of let the client decide which way they want to go. And then we just dive straight into that option and completely forget about the other one at that point. Now, before we have a question, okay? Now, I like to line up behind the quarterback, and the quarterback snaps the football, and I'm just kidding. You can have
this, ladies and gentlemen, is why I know do drugs.
I know we've kind of hinted around this before, but it would be really good if we had something like that. Like, I know maybe not for us necessarily, we kind of know that already, but for maybe some of the newer agents, it'd be nice to have kind of like what we have, that bundle sheet you have. If we could make something that had the pros and cons, just keep it short and sweet like you did.
There's one right there in the front of the Medicare and You handbook. You can print it right off online.
Okay.
Super easy.
It's in the AARP handbook.
Yeah, you can pull out one of those AARP books and make a copy of that front page and use it over and over.
So the 144.60, you're gonna have to pay regardless, no matter what plan you get.
Yeah.
That's the only thing.
Unless you qualify for a low-income subsidy or Medicaid that if your income is low enough, they'll pay that premium for you.
Okay.
Yep.
But if not, you're going to pay it. And actually, if your income is high enough, you know, if you're married and filing joint, if it's over 175,000, it actually starts to go up. This premium goes up based on income. It's a thing called IRMAA. Probably need to do a video on Medicare Academy all about IRMAA. Income related monthly adjustment amount. So they don't call it a penalty. It's just an adjustment based on how much you make, and there's graphs, and it actually affects this premium and your Part D drug premium. They raise your premium based on the income tier. If you're single, the threshold is 80,000. I had a lady in here the other day that was single, and she was a real estate agent, and her income was like 160,000. Or actually, she's a mortgage broker, but she's going to be affected, you know, big time by that IRMAA unless she waits and retires later, and that's what I told her to do. I was like, you don't even need to go on Medicare right now because your premiums are going to be so high with IRMAA. Just keep your group coverage and pay for it, and when you go to retire, you can activate everything, and your income will be much lower. But then even then, on IRMAA, they go based on 2 years prior. But if your income is drastically different, so like say I was working and I'm making $1 billion, but then I retired and I'm making 20,000. Okay, well IRMAA uses 2 year ago tax returns, so they'd be using 2018 right now. They'd be like, well, you made $1 billion. Well, I'd be like, well, now I'm making 20,000. I'm not making that $1 billion anymore. You tell them that, and they can adjust it. They're only going based on 2 years prior because that's the most accurate full set of tax returns they have to go off of. So
And they only do that if the customer or the client will request that.
yeah, they have to request it. If not, they just get screwed. And I didn't know that for a long time, and there are probably a lot of people I didn't tell to do that.
And you'd be surprised too when you have clients that come in that say they can't afford things. If you'll recommend, have you applied for partial help or for help? I mean, I've closed a lot of deals that way where they go, oh, I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah. If they get partial help and this is paid for, a lot of times they'll still get a supplement because now they're not having to pay this, so the supplement's much more affordable. Now sometimes they go in and they get full Medicaid. When they get full Medicaid, then they definitely need to consider a D-SNP, period, because those come with massive extra benefits. You know, I mean, they give them they give them like $6,000-7,000 in benefits a year.
I would say, you know, you being in the house helping some of these people, like you might go the extra step and just applying for extra help. Like it's an application that takes 5 minutes. If you're in the house, you can get most of the information from them.
Yep.
And then you're the one that applied, and it takes like 2 weeks for them to get a letter in the mail. And if they get granted any sort of extra help, any LIS, that creates a special enrollment period where you can maybe change their drug plan or enroll them into an MAPD or something. So like if you talking to somebody in the middle of the year, you know, and they are in that situation, like you might look like a hero if you're, you know, take 5 minutes.
It makes it look like you definitely know more than what they've already done.
So this
You don't have to go anywhere, they don't have to call anybody.
Yeah.
You're one
this approach is the 30,000 foot view, and the reason I say that is if you get hyper specific, you got to make them choose an avenue before you continue the conversation, because if you spend a bunch of time running numbers on both of them, you end up eating so much time. You got to make them decide, you know, do you want to pay to play, or do you want to go cheap and hope nothing happens to you? I mean, that's what, you know, and different people, different strokes for different folks. I mean, it's not a one size fits all. It's one size fits one.
I like to say it this way: do you want 3 apps or 6?
I like to say, do you want me to make this amount of money or this amount of money? Actually, I'll tell them sometimes, I'm like, I'll say, I know you think because this one over here is cheaper, I make less money, and that's why I might recommend this one, but actually this one probably pays more.
Yeah.
So.
Well, even with a small cancer and indemnity plan at 0 premium, you'll still probably save them $60, $70 a month over MSA.
Yeah, or more.
Yeah.
I mean, by the time they do 144.60, and let's say you're talking to a 70-year-old, and they're looking at one 38 for a med sub,
I'd say about 144.
and let's say their drug plan's going to be 25. Well, that person's looking at 17, 1, 5, 8. They're looking at 307.60. Well, if you did that same 144.60 plus a 0 for the MA, and then you say that you give them a HIP at 50, well, now they're at 194.60. So they're saving, that person's saving 100 and whatever that
And
is.
I think where it's really appealing is when you're dealing with the husband or you know, a set where they're both retiring and doing it at the same time. And you're saving them just double that. So it's easier for them to do Medicare Advantage.
113. $113. What can they do with that?
Looks like the couple.
You might think it's $113, like I'd rather just pay to do it, but you get somebody that's making $1,300 a month, they might think, I'm really, really healthy right now and I don't really have time to deal with that 113. And also, the Lasso plans are getting really good this year, the new benefits on them. So some of these people, if they're really healthy and they're considering that long-term, like, build-up of the Lasso, I'd consider it.
I'm gonna.
Especially in
Nolan
County.
is trying. Nolan is trying. He is very adamant about MSA.
It's a great, it's a good option.
I'm sold on it.
This year.
If
It's a
somebody's
great-
healthy, I'm recommending it.
Especially if you're in Lowndes County.
Well, you gotta be careful with it. If somebody's not comfortable with it, you don't want to enroll them in.
Yeah.
You want, like, I would do it on myself, but I understand it.
Yes.
Somebody that doesn't understand it, you don't want to be like, this is a great plan for you, this is what you need. Okay, I'm trusting you. No, that's not a Lasso prospect.
No.
That's not a Lasso. Lasso, you know, the I'm trusting you people, just go ahead and look at any of the other options.
I think the Lasso person is the person, I don't want none of that.
So MSAs, they really need to have an
Yeah.
understanding of what's
Yes,
going on.
yes.
When you get somebody that's like, I'm never sick, do I even need all this coverage? I don't even understand all this crap. I don't want anything. You know, I just want to get the bare minimum. Okay, Lasso's a great option. for
MSA.
you. And honestly, they might come out great because, you know, Lasso, if it has that rollover savings account, and so I don't know, whatever it's in it, $3,000. If they go 3 or 4 years and they have no expenses, now they have $12,000 in there. That's way more than their deductible is. And so when they do have, you know, something crazy happen and they wise up about their health, they might still not wise up because they got so much money in there they're not out of pocket anything, and they think, man, me being cheap really worked out. But really, it's because you put them in the best plan for a cheapo. So, anyway, and I'm not.